So let's begin our discussion with an introduction to Cisco's SD-WAN. Our aim in this video is going to be to discuss what is SD-WAN and what advantages does this bring to the current networking environment. After that, we'll talk about the various different components as an introduction to those components. Throughout the rest of this skill, of course, we'll be talking about each of those components in more detail. So let's go ahead and jump in with our introduction. So of course, the first thing we want to ask when we start talking about a new topic is why? Why do we care about SD-WAN? What's good about it? And what does it add to what we already have in networking? Well, first off, it is a software-defined solution. What this basically means is that we're going to use a controller to control our network. Why? Why is this important? Well, for one thing, it is definitely easier and it's more consistent as far as configuration. Now keep in mind as we go through this discussion, central management isn't really something new in networking. What's really new here is that we make changes on a controller, and those changes automatically and uniformly get pushed out to all of the devices. That's what makes this easier, more efficient, and more accurate. It's basically removing the possibility of mistakes from the equation and making everything essentially a one-click operation. So specifically, some of the things that it will simplify support for is connecting to multi-cloud. It makes this much easier, as well as connecting to things such as platform as a service or software as a service. All of these are going to be much easier with SD-WAN because there are built-in wizards to help you set all of this stuff up. And in addition to just making cloud services easier, we can also simplify things such as our routing. Again, it's going to make it more consistent. Better security. Again, mostly through that whole idea of consistency. There will be a consistent security policy on all of the devices. And we sort of did already mention, it does this all, of course, through this simplified and centralized management. That is the main advantage to the whole software-defined model. And overall, it simply optimizes the whole cloud experience with, again, built-in wizards and such as Cisco OnRamp, to help simplify cloud configuration. So what are the moving parts that make all of this work? So the SD-WAN solution is made up of 4 major components. There are a few optional components as well that we'll discuss. However, there are 4 major components. The first of those 4 major components is vManage. vManage is what offers that central management to the environment. It's essentially a web page that we go to do all of our configuration, management, and monitoring. Next is the vSmart controller. This again is the controller of this entire environment. The vManage controller is what tells the vSmart controller what to do, but keep in mind it's the vSmart controller that's actually doing it. So yes, vManage provides the graphical interface for us administrators, but when it comes to actually implementing this, it's being done by vSmart. The next component is vBond. This one orchestrates the connections between the controller and the edge. The edge is what we're going to be talking about next. But this is essentially the connection manager for SD-WAN. And finally, we have the WAN edge devices. These are the actual devices, either physical or virtual, that are actually sitting at each location's edge. So you would basically say this is the data plane. Everything above this has been either management plane or control plane. This is the actual data plane. these are the devices that are being controlled by the vSmart controller and are therefore doing the actual packet forwarding. Now, just so you're aware, starting with version 20.12 and iOS XE version 17.12, Cisco decided to rename this product line. So what did they change? Well, first, the overall solution is now called the Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN solution. So they changed the overall name from just SD-WAN to Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN. Then each component also got renamed. vManage is now referred to as the Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Manager. vSmart now becomes the Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Controller. You might be getting a little bit of a trend on how these names are running. They all tend to begin with the product name Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN. Next up is vBond, which is the big surprise, Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Validator. And finally, there's another component we haven't really discussed yet called vAnalytics. This is now the Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Analytics. This is for collecting and analyzing information about our network. We'll talk about this in more detail in an upcoming video. And one other thing I want to point out, as we go through this course, we will be using the original names just because Cisco, through the entirety of the ENCC, generally refers to these products by their older names, the vManage, the vSmart, the vBond, and the WAN Edge. Just be aware of these new names, just in case they update the exam. Be aware that both of these names are technically valid, but again, in a lot of places, Cisco is still using the original names, so just be aware of this change. So in this video, we just jumped in with a quick introduction, hopefully answered that question, why SD-WAN? Why do we care? What does it bring to the table? And we talked about the 4 major components that we have with SD-WAN, as well as the fact that the product names have changed a bit here in the newest versions of code. Next, let's take a closer look at that vManage server.